Sir, deliveries use the service entrance. Vanessa Sterling's voice cut through the rainy Chicago morning with the clean precision of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Ethan Hale stopped beneath the glass canopy of Sterling Pembroke Industries, water shining on the shoulders of his faded work jacket. His 8-year-old daughter Lucy held his hand and looked up at the 40-story tower disappearing into the gray sky. A black sedan idled behind Vanessa and two senior executives. Her eyes moved over Ethan once, worn boots, inexpensive jacket, old pickup, then Lucy's dented metal lunchbox. If you're looking for maintenance, she added, security can direct you. Ethan's expression did not change. I'm here to see Arthur Pembroke. One executive gave a quiet laugh. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. The chairman? Yes, ma'am. Do you have an appointment? Ethan reached inside his jacket and removed a cream-colored envelope, softened at the corners from being carried carefully. Vanessa opened it. Ethan, 9 o'clock. Come personally. Arthur. For half a second, uncertainty crossed her face. Then it disappeared. Anyone can write a note. Ethan accepted the envelope back without argument. Lucy squeezed his fingers. Daddy, should we go home? He looked down at her. Not yet, sweetheart. Why? When you give someone your word, you stay until they tell you the word no longer matters. Vanessa heard him. So did the receptionist. Nobody answered. Rain tapped against the glass above them while the revolving doors turned slowly behind a steady stream of employees. Vanessa checked her watch. I have a board meeting in 6 minutes. Security will show you to the visitor area. Ethan nodded. That's fine. He turned with Lucy toward a row of leather chairs near the wall. Then something beside the security desk caught his attention. A digital building control panel glowed pale blue. Numbers shifted across several zones. Ethan slowed. Does that West transformer always run 6 degrees hot? The security guard frowned. Vanessa stopped walking. Excuse me. Ethan looked once more at the display. Probably nothing. He kept moving. Vanessa stared at the panel, irritated now for reasons she could not explain. Then a soft chime sounded. The private executive elevator opened. Conversations faded. Arthur Pembroke, 72 years old and chairman of Sterling Pembroke Industries, stepped out alone. He looked past Vanessa. Past the executives. Past security. Directly at Ethan. Arthur did not call for an assistant. He crossed the marble lobby himself. Vanessa straightened. The two executives beside her fell silent. Arthur walked past all three. I was afraid you wouldn't come. Ethan rose and released Lucy's hand only long enough to meet the older man halfway. Arthur extended his hand first. Ethan shook it. Arthur turned toward Lucy. And you must be Lucy. Her eyes widened. You know my name. Arthur smiled. Your father talks about you more than he talks about himself. Ethan gave the smallest shake of his head. That's because she's more interesting. Lucy smiled. Then Arthur looked at Ethan. Thank you for keeping your word. I gave it to you. Vanessa finally stepped forward. Arthur, the board is waiting. He looked toward the elevators. Good. They can wait another minute. The sentence landed quietly, but Vanessa felt it. Minutes earlier, she had made Ethan wait because she believed his time mattered less. Now the chairman was making the board wait because Ethan's presence mattered more. Arthur motioned toward the elevator. Come upstairs. Ethan glanced at Lucy. She stays with me. Of course. Vanessa followed several steps behind. As the doors opened, Arthur reached into his portfolio and removed a thick red folder. He handed it to Ethan. Graymont Final Acquisition Review. Vanessa stopped. Graymont Systems was worth $598 million. It was the largest transaction since she had become chief executive officer. 7 months of negotiations. 3 outside advisory firms. 2 engineering reviews. 1 financing package that expired at midnight. Every director upstairs expected approval before noon. Ethan looked at the folder. "You still want my opinion?" Arthur nodded. "If you wanted agreement, you would have invited someone else." Arthur smiled faintly. "That is exactly why I called you." The elevator doors closed. 4. The first time that morning, Vanessa stopped looking at Ethan's jacket. She looked at the folder in his hands. The elevator climbed in silence. Ethan opened the acquisition review. $598 million appeared across the first page. Ethan simply turned it. Vanessa watched him. "What exactly do you expect him to review?" Arthur kept his eyes on Ethan. "Judgment. We already have legal review, engineering review, financial review, environmental review, and outside compliance." "I know. Then what are we missing?" Arthur finally looked at her. "Someone who has walked away from money before." Ethan closed the folder. "She deserves more context than that." Arthur nodded. Ethan looked toward Lucy before speaking. "I run a small electrical and repairs shop outside the city. 3 employees. Commercial service, industrial controls, emergency calls." Vanessa frowned. "That's your current work?" "Yes." "And before that?" "Systems engineering." "For whom?" "Several contractors." Arthur stepped in. He was one of the best safety systems engineers I ever encountered. Ethan gave him a tired look. "That was a long time ago. Competence does not expire because a man stops printing it on business cards." Lucy looked up at her father. "Mom used to say that." Ethan's eyes softened. "She said something close." Vanessa heard the change in his voice but did not ask. The elevator opened onto the 39th floor. Megan Foster hurried toward them with a tablet against her chest. "The board is assembled. Mr. Ward has asked twice whether we are beginning." Arthur continued walking. "Tell Preston we begin when I sit down." Megan nodded. Her eyes flicked to Ethan, then Lucy, then the red folder. Vanessa lowered her voice. "You brought him here because you don't trust Graymont." Arthur stopped outside the boardroom. "I brought him here because I don't trust perfect numbers." He turned to Ethan. "Do you?" Ethan looked through the glass at the directors inside. "Perfect numbers are usually expensive." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Meaning?" "Meaning somebody paid for them one way or another." Arthur opened the door. 12 faces turned. At the far end, Preston Ward smiled until he saw Ethan. Then someone else looked like he had recognized the wrong man. Preston recovered quickly. "Arthur, I wasn't aware we were bringing outside contractors into a confidential acquisition review." Arthur took his seat. "Ethan is here at my request." Preston glanced at the work jacket. "With respect, we have already paid 3 national firms to review these materials." Ethan said nothing. Lucy settled in an adjoining lounge visible through a glass wall. Megan gave her paper, colored pencils, and headphones. Vanessa opened her tablet. "Proceed." Graymont appeared on the main screen. Revenue forecasts. Expansion plans. Safety certifications. Compliance summaries. Everything looked clean. Too clean. Preston moved through each slide with practiced confidence. Independent review confirms full compliance. No material defects. No unresolved safety exposure. Several directors nodded. Ethan turned pages. 10 minutes. 20. 30. Preston relaxed. "As you can see, there is no reason to delay." Ethan stopped turning pages. His thumb rested against a certification code near the bottom of page 214. Who certified these tests? Preston paused. Hawthorne Industrial Laboratories. All three. According to the report. Who signed them? Dr. Samuel Krell. Senior Compliance Engineer. Ethan nodded. On what dates? Preston gave a thin smile. The dates are printed in front of you. I know. Ethan's voice remained quiet. I'm asking whether your team verified them. The air changed. Vanessa leaned forward. Why does that matter? Ethan turned the folder toward her. Because these three certificates have the same batch structure. Preston laughed once. You're suggesting fraud because the paperwork looks similar? No, Ethan closed the folder halfway. I'm saying familiar paperwork deserves an unfamiliar question. Arthur remained silent. Vanessa asked, what question? Ethan pointed to the first date. Was Hawthorne's West Testing Wing operating on October 17th? Preston's expression tightened. Of course it was. Then confirm it. Preston reached for his tablet. This is a waste of time. Maybe. He searched. His finger slowed. Then stopped. Vanessa saw the change. What? Preston said nothing. Ethan tapped the page. Hawthorne's West Testing Wing lost power that morning. 8 hours. One director sat straighter. Public utility record, Ethan continued. This certificate says the test was performed in that wing during the outage. Preston leaned back. A building can have emergency power. Absolutely. That answer surprised him. Ethan looked at Vanessa. So the next question is whether the test equipment was on the emergency circuit. Preston said, the outside firms reviewed this. Did they review raw laboratory logs? Ethan asked. Vanessa looked at Preston. They reviewed the seller's certified data room. Hawthorne's instrument logs were outside the agreed scope because Graymont classified them as proprietary third-party records. The three firms had reviewed polished certificates, not the raw evidence beneath them. Vanessa's expression hardened. Why wasn't that limitation highlighted? Because it is standard. Ethan looked at him. Standard doesn't mean harmless. Preston's jaw tightened. One facility outage still proves nothing. You're right. Again, Ethan refused the easy victory. That's why I kept reading. Through the glass wall, Lucy looked up from her drawing. Vanessa noticed Ethan glance toward her. You said you've seen this certification pattern before. He remained silent for a moment. Then he answered. 11 years ago, I worked on a safety systems project for a contractor tied to one of Sterling Pembroke's manufacturing divisions. Preston shifted in his chair. Vanessa noticed. Ethan continued. I was 27. Caroline and I had just learned we were going to be parents. I thought doing good work was enough to build a future. His voice stayed even. During final review, I found testing results altered to make the system look ready before it was ready. A director asked, what did you do? I reported it. Management told me the delay would cost millions, the risk was theoretical, and I was too young to understand business. Ethan gave a faint, humorless smile. I understood exactly how it worked. That was the problem. Arthur spoke. The project was stopped. Vanessa turned toward him. You knew. I ordered the investigation. Ethan was right. Preston crossed his arms. And then Mr. Hale became some kind of corporate legend? Ethan answered first. No. I lost my job. Vanessa stared at him. After you were proven right? Being right and being convenient are not the same thing. He glanced at Lucy. Caroline got sick not long after Lucy was born. Arthur offered me ways back into the industry. Arthur nodded. More than one. I turned them down. Why? Ethan's eyes softened. Because my wife needed a husband, and my daughter needed a father more than I needed a title. No one touched a tablet. Through the glass, Lucy had stopped coloring. She could not hear every word through the partition. But she knew when her father was speaking about her mother. Arthur looked at Vanessa. That's why he's here. Not because he makes numbers impressive. Because I've seen what he does when telling the truth costs him something. Ethan reopened the red folder. And the second certificate is going to cost somebody more questions. Preston leaned forward. This is becoming theater. Then the paperwork should end it. Ethan turned to the second certificate. Dr. Samuel Krell supposedly supervised a pressure control test in Illinois on October 23. Ethan pulled up a public conference schedule. Dr. Krell had delivered a keynote in Phoenix that same morning. More than 1,700 miles away. Preston responded immediately. Electronic signature. Possible. Ethan pointed lower. But this form says he supervised the test in person. Arthur's gaze settled on Preston. Did your team ask? We were working under deadline. Deadlines explain missed details, Ethan said. They don't explain why the same person is documented in two places. Preston's tone sharpened. You have been out of this industry for 11 years. I've been out of corporate titles for 11 years. That is not the same thing. No, Ethan looked at him. Machines kept breaking. One director almost smiled. Preston did not. He tapped his own tablet. We have an acquisition clock. Our financing commitment expires tonight. If this deal slips, the lenders can reprice the package. That can cost tens of millions. Vanessa looked toward the CFO. He nodded reluctantly. That part is correct. Preston continued. Every hour of delay creates real risk based on speculation from a man who has not seen the source laboratory records. Ethan nodded again. Also correct. Vanessa looked at him sharply. Then what are you saying? I'm saying you shouldn't vote yes. Preston laughed. Based on what? Based on the fact that you cannot prove the certificates are true. Preston stood. That is not how acquisitions work. Ethan stayed seated. It is how safety works. The room held still. Then Ethan turned to the third certificate. The data file was uploaded at 8:14 in the morning. Vanessa followed the line. The test began at 9:30. Yes. One director frowned. You're saying the completed results existed before the test started? 76 minutes before. Preston stood straighter. A file can be created as a template. Absolutely. Ethan pointed to the metadata printed beneath it. This one already contains the final measurement checksum. Now Preston said nothing. Ethan looked around the table. 3 inconsistencies. None of them alone proves fraud. Together they prove you don't know enough to approve this deal. Megan appeared at the boardroom door. Her face was pale. Ms. Sterling. Vanessa turned. What is it? I tried to open the restricted Greymont diligence archive. Preston looked at her too quickly. Megan continued. My access was denied. Vanessa frowned. You have executive office clearance. I know. Who changed it? Megan swallowed. The permission update was made at 8:52 this morning. Vanessa looked at Preston. His expression barely moved. By whose office? Megan answered. Acquisition operations. Preston leaned back. That was a security hold. We have an unauthorized outside person in the room. He looked directly at Ethan. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You locked my executive staff out of the archive because Ethan was here. I protected confidential seller information. Arthur's voice became quiet. From the CEO's chief of staff. Preston hesitated. It was temporary. Vanessa stood. Restore it. Vanessa, now. Preston looked around the table, saw no support, and typed something into his tablet. Megan's screen refreshed. She entered the archive. Folders appeared. Most contained exactly what the board had already seen. Then one directory caught her attention. Supplemental compliance, restricted. She clicked. A warning appeared. Seller counsel approval required. Preston said, that material is privileged. Ethan looked at Vanessa. Maybe it is. Preston seized on the answer. Finally. Ethan continued. But your board package describes the safety record as complete. If there is restricted compliance material you haven't reviewed, the package isn't complete. The room went silent again. Vanessa stared at Preston. Did you know that folder existed? Yes. Did you review it? Counsel summarized it. Did you open it? Preston did not answer. Vanessa's voice lowered. Did you open it? Yes. What was inside? Administrative correspondence. Megan looked at her screen. Ms. Sterling, there's an index file. Preston stood. Do not open privileged material in front of an outside contractor. Vanessa did not look away from him. Ethan, step into the lounge. Ethan rose immediately. No argument. It's your company. He crossed to Lucy. She took off her headphones. Are we leaving? Not yet. She looked at his face. You got the quiet look. He almost smiled. What quiet look? The one Mom said you get when something is wrong and everybody else says it's fine. He looked at her. You remember that? She said it when the washing machine flooded the kitchen. Despite everything, Ethan laughed softly. Your mother had a long memory. Lucy leaned closer. Are you scared? He looked through the glass at the boardroom. A little. Because you might be wrong. No, that answer surprised her. Because I might be right. Lucy thought about it. Is that worse? Sometimes. She reached for his hand. Then don't do the thing where you pretend you're not scared. He looked down. Caroline used to say the same thing. The boardroom door opened. Vanessa stood there. Ethan. He returned. The atmosphere had changed. Megan's face was tighter. Arthur's expression was hard. Preston no longer looked annoyed. He looked cornered. Vanessa spoke. The restricted folder contains an email from Greymont's internal compliance officer, Daniel Mercer. Preston immediately said, it was administrative. Vanessa ignored him. The message was sent 6 weeks ago. It warned that test records contained timeline conflicts and recommended delaying certification. She turned the screen. The distribution list appeared. Preston Ward was first. You received it. Preston drew a slow breath. I receive hundreds of emails. It was marked immediate review required. That doesn't mean I personally read every attachment. Megan pointed to a second entry. There's a reply. Vanessa opened it. 3 words. Proceed as scheduled. A director lowered his pen. Preston shook his head. Someone on my team could have answered. Megan's voice remained careful. The message came from your authenticated executive account. Assistants have delegated access. Not to this data room. He stared at her. Megan continued. It required biometric confirmation. Preston's face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. Arthur leaned forward. Context. Preston looked at him. You said this is being taken out of context. Give us the context. Preston hesitated. We were facing a quarter-end deadline. Graymont told us the inconsistencies were clerical. They promised revised certifications. When? Vanessa asked. After closing. Arthur spoke softly. After we owned the liability. Preston looked toward Vanessa. I made a judgment call. Without telling me. I was protecting the transaction. Vanessa looked down at the email. No. You were protecting the schedule. Preston's tone hardened. The schedule protects shareholder value. Ethan finally spoke. Not if the asset isn't what you think you're buying. Preston turned toward him. You seem pleased with yourself. No, Ethan looked through the glass toward Lucy. There is nothing pleasing about watching people trust paperwork somebody else knew was incomplete. Preston pointed to his disclosed transaction bonus. You want motive? Half this table receives performance compensation. Vanessa nodded. By itself, that proves nothing. Correct, Ethan said. An incentive is a reason to ask a question, not an answer. Preston proposed a $50 million escrow so the deal could close while Graymont corrected the records. Vanessa looked toward Ethan. What would you do? A holdback protects money, he said. It doesn't protect the person standing next to a system that fails. There has been no failure, Preston replied. Then verify it before you own it. Preston turned to the directors. If we delay now, Graymont can walk. Our lenders can reprice. Competitors will know we lost nerve. You are choosing reputational damage over 3 paperwork inconsistencies. A director asked Vanessa, can we authenticate the evidence today? Megan answered. We can authenticate document provenance and access logs today. Physical retesting will take several days. Vanessa looked to Ethan. So no one can tell me today whether the system actually fails. Correct. Preston spread his hands. Then there is no basis to cancel. Ethan shook his head. There is a basis not to approve. The difference settled over the room. Vanessa closed the folder. The vote is suspended. Preston stood. You cannot do that unilaterally. I can postpone a vote until the board has complete diligence. The financing expires tonight. Then let it expire. A murmur moved around the table. Preston stared at her. You're risking tens of millions. Vanessa's voice remained steady. I'm refusing to risk nearly 600 million because someone decided incomplete information was close enough. Preston looked toward the board. We should vote on whether to proceed with escrow. One director nodded. Another hesitated. The room was not unanimous. Preston had found his opening. Call the vote. Vanessa looked at Arthur. He did not intervene. This was her company to lead now. Preston continued. Either we run a public company by evidence, or we let one outsider create panic. Ethan remained still. Vanessa looked at each director. Then Megan's tablet chimed. She read the alert. Her face changed. What now? Vanessa asked. Megan turned the screen. A document export request was just triggered from the restricted Graymont folder. Preston stared at her. By whom? Your account. The room froze. Preston looked at his laptop. I didn't do that. Megan checked again. 2 minutes ago. Download and deletion request. Arthur stood. Deletion? Preston's voice sharpened. That is impossible. General Counsel moved beside Megan. The request is queued, not completed. Archive retention blocked the deletion. Vanessa's eyes locked on Preston. Your account attempted to remove the compliance folder during this meeting. I did not. Biometric? Megan checked. No. This request came through a delegated acquisition services token. Preston exhaled. Exactly. Ethan spoke. Who controls the token? Preston said nothing. Megan answered. Preston's operations office. One director asked, could an assistant have done it? Yes. Could Preston? Yes. Ethan raised a hand slightly. Then don't decide who did it yet. Vanessa looked at him. He continued. Preserve the logs. Investigate separately. Preston stared. You are defending me now? No, Ethan's voice was flat. I'm defending the difference between suspicion and proof. The board fell silent. That moment changed the room more than any accusation could have. Vanessa looked at General Counsel. Freeze all Greymont approvals. Preserve every email, token, access log, certification, and data room action. No deletion. No overwrite. Then she looked at the directors. The vote is suspended pending independent field testing and forensic review. This time, no one objected. Preston slowly closed his laptop. But he was not finished. As Ethan and Lucy waited near the elevators 20 minutes later, Ethan's phone buzzed. Then again. Then again. His shop manager called. Ethan, something's happening. What? A trade blog just posted an article saying you were removed from industrial engineering 11 years ago for misconduct. Ethan's face changed. Vanessa heard. The manager continued through the phone. 2 customers called asking whether your licenses are valid. 1 commercial client paused Monday's job. Ethan closed his eyes for half a second. Don't argue with anyone. Send them our current licenses. And insurance. Keep the shop open. He ended the call. Vanessa stared at him. That story went live 8 minutes after the vote was suspended. Arthur's expression hardened. Preston. Ethan shook his head. Maybe. You think that's coincidence? I think evidence matters even when the target deserves suspicion. Lucy looked up. What did they say about you? Ethan crouched. Something old that isn't true. Did you do something bad? The question cut through every adult in the corridor. No, sweetheart. Then why would they say it? He paused. Because a rumor can move faster than the truth. Lucy looked toward Vanessa. Can you fix it? Vanessa opened her mouth. Ethan answered. She can help check what happened. Lucy looked back at him. Are you going to lose the shop? No, he hoped that was true. She studied him carefully. You're doing the quiet look again. Ethan almost smiled. I know. Lucy took his hand. Mom said you're allowed to be scared and still do the right thing. For the first time all morning, Ethan had no answer ready. He simply squeezed her hand. Vanessa looked away for a moment. Then she turned to Megan. Find the source of that article. Within an hour, investigators traced the leaked personnel summary to a document exported through acquisition operations. It did not yet prove Preston personally sent it, but it was enough to place him on administrative leave. Vanessa made only one public statement: Greymont had been postponed because Sterling Pembroke had unresolved diligence questions. No accusation. No grandstanding. That afternoon, Vanessa found Ethan in the lobby preparing to leave. Rain still streaked the glass. The same security guard stood nearby. The same receptionist watched from her desk. Vanessa stopped in front of Ethan. This morning, I made a decision about you before I knew anything about you. Employees nearby grew quiet. Ethan listened. I looked at your clothes. Your truck. The way you arrived. I decided you didn't belong near this door. Lucy held her father's hand. Vanessa continued. I was wrong. Ethan's expression softened slightly. You protected this company today without asking for credit or payment. But that Isn't why I should have respected you this morning. No, she nodded. I should have respected you before I knew who called you here. The lobby stayed still. Ethan looked around. If you mean that, don't make this about me. Vanessa frowned slightly. Make sure the next person who walks through that door doesn't need the chairman to earn basic respect. The words carried no anger. That made them harder to escape. Vanessa turned toward security. Effective today, no visitor is dismissed because of clothing, vehicle, job title, or assumption. If they say they have business here, verify it with dignity. The guard nodded. The receptionist looked at Ethan. I'm sorry. Ethan gave a small nod. Then we're good. Lucy looked at Vanessa. My dad says important lessons are usually annoying. Ethan glanced down. I don't remember saying annoying. You said difficult. That is not the same word. Lucy smiled. For the first time that day, Vanessa laughed. Then she opened the front door herself. 3 days later, independent engineers repeated Graymont's sustained load test using sealed instrumentation. At hour 3, thermal drift appeared. At hour 4, 2 control assemblies exceeded Graymont's own safety threshold. The supposedly corrected problem was still there. Hawthorne then produced its original records. The outage days certificate used data from an earlier partial run. Dr. Krell had not supervised the Illinois test while he was in Phoenix. The third result file had been copied forward before the test began. Internal communications showed Daniel Mercer had sent 3 warnings, while Preston's office had kept the final warning out of Vanessa's executive summary. The delegated deletion token belonged to Preston's acquisition director, who admitted Preston told him to clean redundant seller files after the meeting. Finally, investigators found that a communications consultant retained through Preston's office had sent Ethan's old personnel summary to the trade blog. Preston resigned before the disciplinary hearing. Ethan did not celebrate. He was at Hale Electrical and Repair replacing a damaged control board when Vanessa arrived. Lucy sat at the counter doing math homework. Vanessa carried a thin folder. Ethan looked up. More trouble. No, she placed the folder beside his tools. Some repairs. Inside was a formal correction of the false account about Ethan, requests for retractions from the publications that repeated it, and confirmation that his suspended clients had restored their work. Thank you, Ethan said. This isn't charity, Vanessa replied. My company helped make that story believable. Arthur entered behind her. I should have protected your name when I protected your work. I'm sorry. Ethan closed the folder. That part can't be changed. What you do next can. Arthur nodded. 3 weeks later, Ethan returned to the 39th floor. Nobody questioned why he was there. Arthur stood beside the windows with a formal offer on the table. Senior Vice President of Safety and Integrity. Ethan looked at the document. Full authority. Yes. Executive compensation. Yes. My own department. Yes. People who call me sir. Arthur almost smiled. Probably too many. Vanessa sat across from them. Graymont had been permanently cancelled, and new rules now required source-level safety records for major industrial acquisitions. Lucy looked up from her homework. Would you work here every day? Probably. Late? Sometimes. Who would pick me up? Ethan looked at her, then slid the offer back. I can help without becoming someone she never sees. Vanessa nodded slowly. What would you accept? Independent safety advisor. Direct access to the audit committee. Authority to stop a project long enough for independent review when source data is missing. Arthur leaned back. Anything else? A protected fund for employees who report safety or ethics concerns. Vanessa nodded. Done. No retaliation hidden in performance reviews. No quiet career punishment. Done. And scholarships for children from working families who want to study engineering but can't afford the path. Arthur smiled. Anything else? Ethan looked at Vanessa. Teach managers that respect comes before resumes. She held his gaze. That one has already started. Lucy raised her hand from the table. I have one. 3 adults looked at her. Ethan sighed. Of course you do. If Dad has a meeting before school, he still takes me. Arthur nodded solemnly. Binding condition. Lucy smiled. Good. 6 months later, Hale Electrical and Repairs smelled of coffee, machine oil, and fresh-cut lumber from the shop next door. Ethan was beneath an open control panel when the bell above the front door rang. Lucy sat at the counter doing math homework. Vanessa entered alone. No driver. No assistant. No board packet. She wore a simple navy coat and carried a thin folder. Lucy looked up. Miss Sterling. Vanessa smiled. You remembered. Dad says remembering people matters. Ethan stood and wiped his hands on a towel. What brings you out here? Vanessa placed the folder on the counter. Inside were the first 20 scholarship recipients, the new employee protection policy, and an acquisition checklist requiring raw safety data whenever safety affected valuation. I thought you should see what your conditions became. Ethan read slowly. This is good work. Lucy pointed to one scholarship recipient. She wants to build airplanes. Vanessa nodded. And now she gets the chance. Lucy looked at her father. Like you wanted to build things. Ethan smiled. I mostly wanted to keep them from breaking. Vanessa stepped toward him and extended her hand. She did not wait for Arthur. Did not wait for a title. Did not wait for anyone more powerful to show her what Ethan was worth. Ethan looked at her hand. Then he shook it. Thank you, she said. For what? For making me see the difference between importance and character. Ethan released her hand. Just remember it when nobody important is watching. Vanessa nodded. Months earlier, one handshake had silenced an entire lobby. This one was quieter. But it meant more. Lucy closed her math book. Dad? Yeah. Was Greymont the biggest thing you ever fixed? Ethan looked around the small shop. At the 3 workbenches. At the coffee cup beside the soldering station. At the school backpack hanging from a chair. Then he looked at his daughter. No, what was? He smiled. Making sure I didn't lose the important things while I was fixing everything else. Lucy considered. That. Mom would like that answer. Ethan's smile faded into something softer. Yeah. Vanessa looked toward the open shop door, where afternoon sunlight stretched across the concrete. She finally understood why Arthur had called Ethan instead of another firm with polished credentials. The most important thing Ethan Hale had ever protected was not a company, a transaction, or a machine. It was the line he refused to cross when money, fear, and status told everyone else to keep moving. And the daughter beside him had been watching that line her entire life.